Welcome everybody to Thought Leader Friday. We're excited to have this back on the air. And if you were with us yesterday, we had John Brewster back for Live Music Happy Hours, kind of an encore edition. And you know, part of this feels a little bit like an encore of Thought Leader Friday. Oh, you're going to get some echo. Stand by just a second. If you were with us yesterday, we had John Brewster back for Live Music Happy Hours, kind of an encore edition. I don't really know how to do that. Here we go. I'll fix that in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and hand it to you, Debbie, to get us started for today and lead into our first question. Ben, it's great to see you, buddy, and we're glad to have you here.
Hello, Ben. Welcome back. We're so glad to have you. Great seeing your face and all of that. I want to dive in, not all things technical. First of all, I know the audience is eager to hear what quote Coach Ben's been up to and where you've transitioned to. I know you haven't fallen off our radar, but just would love for you to share all the exciting things you've been up to, what you've been doing, so we can layer that into some of the questions we asked today.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited to be back. Good to talk and see everybody's faces, like we were just saying. That's the fun part about technology. Well, the KGB finally recruited me, and now I'm out of retirement and on a video share. I'm probably not supposed to say it. No, seriously. I've been working in the land development and new construction piece pretty heavily. Got a lot going on there with different pieces of that. And I know we're going to talk about that, so I don't want to give away all the surprises there. Some of the stuff I've gotten invited to the party for is pretty cool. Real quick, and we'll talk more about this in a second. I got invited to talk to all of the major builders. I'm talking the big boys across the country to hear about what's going on that they're seeing. And it's much like getting invited to a team. Say you're a team doing 100 units a year, and then suddenly a team that's doing 5,000 units a year says, "Hey, come here. We're going to bring all the big teams across the country. I want you to sit in and listen and ask any questions and hear what's going on in our world." They start seeing things years before we see them. So hearing what they're doing and what they're seeing was pretty cool. So we'll share some of that later today on that side of things.
Good stuff. Well, we're excited to dive into the content. So I'll just go head first. You know how we are. We open-ended. Questions can go any direction. Bill and I have been discussing and reflecting over the past month or so on lagging effects of COVID that we're seeing in the market with technology, market trends, and then for you, land development, new construction. We would love to see or love to hear what you've been up to, not so much what you've been up to, but what you're seeing as some of those lagging effects of COVID.
Well, obviously the biggest one is that there's a ton of houses for sale now, right? So the market crashed, there's a ton of houses for sale, so much inventory. Buyers are getting in one offer now, you're getting 20% off on houses. So that's going to continue. That's the exact opposite. I think one of the lagging effects of COVID that was unanticipated was the driving down of the inventory of homes to the levels that we've never seen before, almost in a reverse recession of 2008, where before there was that glut of homes that came on the market, new construction in the world I'm in right now, it was all the spec and inventory homes they were building and letting sit there, and they overdid that. So they had so much inventory sitting there that it crushed the market, plus all the subprime stuff going on. We're in a completely different world, and it's a big effect right now. I would wager a bet that just about every market in the country is experiencing less homes that are available. And even in the new construction area arena that we're in, or I'm in right now, we've actually stopped selling homes. How crazy is that? Do you think you'd ever hear a person who has sales so far in their blood that they want to sell everything as fast as possible say, yeah, we actually stopped selling homes. We said no more homes for sale. You have a limit each month. You can't sell anymore. That's a lagging effect. And it's also one of those interesting things that I never thought would happen. And it's one of those things that you have to kind of think about being ready for. Price increases. I think that's something that's going to be with us for a long time. I made a note that one of the things that I think we're going to see happen is that in certain markets, the first-time homebuyer market is no longer what it used to be. There will still be first-time homebuyers, but I know in the areas that I operate in, first-time homebuyer used to be 125 to 150 range in pricing. Then it went to 200. Then it was 200 to 250. We're starting to see that first-time homebuyers are between that 275 to 350 in our market now. So that's a substantial jump if you look at historical trend lines in terms of price increases. So I think that's a lagging effect, and part of it's lack of supply, lack of inventory. It's also the inability of new construction to actually build the houses. And on the development side, what was a really interesting point made with all the big home builders was they can't find lots to build on. They are willing to buy lots anywhere. I mean, I have builders that typically do not go below a certain line, the 95, Interstate 95. That's kind of the line of demarcation for certain counties where you don't go below that line and buy lots. They're going down there and buying lots. They're like, we can't build it fast enough right now. Whole different ballgame on that end. Another effect that I thought about was that technology is no longer an enhancement of anyone's business. It is now a mainstay of your business. There are things that I have seen in the technology space that have not made its way over to the residential resale side that we're using in the land development and new construction side of things that would make people's heads spin if they see what they're coming out with. A couple of the things, the augmented reality versus virtual reality, there's a difference there. We're using that stuff like in interactions with clients. It's not this is a hypothetical for 5 years from now. It's here, we're using it. It's going to change how people do business. So I think technology over the past year really forced its way into the center of the conversation, whereas before it was, how does it make an agent better? How does it make it better for or enhancing it for a client or a consumer? And now it's, if you don't use technology or you're not using the right technology, it's no longer an enhancement. You're going to get left to the wayside to a certain extent. And then the last thing, and I could be biased because of the role I'm in right now and what I'm taking on, but for a while, I think that right now, until we create the inventory and the lots for people and build our way out of this to a certain extent, and a little bit of a market correction would be helpful. I don't think you're going to see the resale market recover like we typically would. Too much equity in people's homes, too much home appreciation. And of course, this is market dependent. I think some locales will experience different levels of this. I know the area that I'm in the Triangle in the Raleigh area, we have a whole different game going on where I have buyers coming from other states and their price points are so different compared to our price points that they can come in and they'll overpay by $200,000 for a house, and they're okay with it because in their mind they just saved $100,000 from where they came from. So when those numbers start happening like that, the resale market will have a really hard time catching up. So then it becomes, how fast can you build? And the problem is the builders, and this is a big effect, not even talking about material shortages, because that's a whole different heart-stopping conversation right now. But on the lot side of things, builders have started dipping into their lot supply for 2022 and 2023. So that's something that won't show up this year. But when the constrictions happen on that end 2 years down the road, that's the problem. And that's an effect of COVID that people don't see yet, but will show up in about 2 years. And that's the thing with the land development and the builders. They're not even in 2021 anymore. We don't care about 2021. It's gone. Most of 2022 is gone for us, actually. Now we're in 2023, 24, and 25. And that's the field we play on right now. What I'm trying to predict on what we need for lots, how many pieces of land do we need, things like that. So again, resale, I don't think is going to come back as quickly as we needed to. So we're going to have to build our way out of it. How that happens, we're going to need a little bit of a market correction help. And all that's from COVID. I mean, a lot of this is just, it hit us in a way that we didn't expect, from supply chains all the way down to businesses being shut down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that statement that you made about it's no longer technology is no longer an enhancement. It's a mainstay for the agents. And you're right. As we went into COVID, we as a coaching company were encouraging everyone to get in there, virtual listing presentations, virtual buyer consultations, connecting via video with follow-up and that sort of thing. And if you're not doing that, or you don't offer that, you're behind the 8 ball at this point, because that's one of those things like photography. We offer photography on your listing, right? So it's what's next, and it's always staying ahead of the curve on that technology. And that's why I like that you brought up the virtual reality and those key pieces. How are you guys using virtual reality and technology?
Can't tell you because it's a secret. Remember
KGB.
No, I'll tell you guys, it's to the point now where virtual reality is where, think Matterport, right? To put it in the resale terms that people get. Matterport is your virtual, right? So you can sit there. They have the Oculus glasses you can put on where you can kind of walk through it. But you're still looking at something in a 3D where you can kind of immerse yourself in it. We're using that on all of our new construction builds and different things that we're executing on. And what's the next level is where now people aren't just going through a pre-printed floor plan, so to speak, or a rendering that we've created ourselves. They're able to interact with the environment. So part of the augmented reality is they're able to put on and they're able to feel and physically walk through a house, and they can actually change the wall color while they're walking through the house to see what it looks like. They can move the furniture around in the room. They can kick out a wall if they want to and add another 3 feet onto the house. They can put a third car option on a house. So they get to actually augment their reality, change their reality around them, and actually interact with their environment in a way that they couldn't before. So they can do all that in our office. We don't have to send them anywhere anymore. We're not like, hey, come here, look at these sheets of renderings, or here, let's go look out at the home site and we'll show you the lot size and kind of walk around and try to get you to understand how big the house is. They can do it now with augmented reality and the ability to change the house around to the different options that they want. And now it's to the point where all that's tying into software that we can study consumer behavior. It's putting all that data, and that's the key word today is data, right? And we're going to talk a little bit about that later. But the data that we're gathering from all that is so key on what's their consumer habits. What are they changing the most in the house? Well, obviously, if they're changing these counters in the house, 62% of the time, why don't we just make that a main? It allows us to predict consumer behavior too. We'll see trends before they happen. So it's at a level that they're not using in resale right now that I think we'll get there eventually. But at the moment, it's a little bit more advanced on this side. There's a lot more money behind it on this side too. I'll tell you that the dollar amounts on this side are a whole different level. So that's another thing I've gotten used to as well, that especially in the land development world, it's nothing to sling, several $1 million at something to try and make it work. And if it doesn't work, you just walk away from it because that's part of the research and development portion. So that's where I think it's hit here first, and it will move over to resale eventually.
Yeah, great. I guess then it's safe for me to assume that I won't see Ben coming live at a trade show near me, right? For land development and sales.
Well, why wouldn't we?
No more trade shows for new home sales.
Yeah.
Great stuff. All right. I'm going to turn it over to Bill for the next question.
Yeah, I think let's keep building on this. One of the things that I find fun about us having this conversation now, a year plus later, is we're looking forward, Ben, and you're going to talk about this in just a second. We're looking forward about sort of predicting what's going to happen in the market over the next year or two, which is the same thing we were doing a year ago. And I would maintain that for most of us, at least in the discussions that we were having, it wasn't super complicated to predict the direction that things were going to go. Like if we sat down and studied it, we could see pretty much what was going to happen. The harder part, though, was stepping out and actually taking action for that a year and a half or a year ahead. So my question is, let's say I'm watching this right now and I hear you and I say, all right, new construction is going to be one of the ways that this inventory shortage is perhaps at some point in the future going to be solved. That's relatively new to me, and I want to go build that as another pillar in my business, or I want to start to begin to build that as a pillar in my business. Number one, would you recommend it? And number two, if so, what would be the steps you'd want me to take?
Absolutely not. I do not recommend it. Do not do this. It will give you a heart attack before, like within a year. I've already had like 3. No. I think do it with caution is what I would say, or do it smartly, which a lot of our people would. Where there's nobody that's watching this that wouldn't do it in an intelligent manner. And there's a process to it, right? So the first thing I would say, if I was going to run out and do this, and this is one of the ways I did it, was people. Look at the people you can get around that have the experience. I'm telling you, experience is worth its weight in gold on this side of the coin. And having come from the resale side of things, no disrespect there, it's not easy to sell a house in today's market. I tell everybody, I wouldn't want to list or be a buyer's agent in today's market to save my life right now. It is brutal. It is brutal for people who are in the market. That being said, there's a lot more risk on this side of the desk when you get over on this side, because again, you're predicting things 3 years down the road. So if you really start from the time you acquire a piece of land all the way and take it all the way through the entitlement period, all the way through construction, the horizontal development, and then you actually go and get builders with plans to build houses, you're investing millions of dollars in capital and time and resources. And you're hoping that when you get to that finish line to build a house, that the market is still there, that you didn't mess up and go, well, I thought we were going to sell $500,000 houses here, and really the market took a tumble, and now we're selling 350 here. That's where people get crushed at. And that's what happened during the recession. There were several people who lost their shirts as developers because they didn't know the process, or they get so hung up in different pieces of it that you lose a lot of time. And time is money when it comes to developing things. So the first thing I would say if I was jumping into this is I would find people who have the experience and that I can latch onto and learn, or pay them to be in my world, whatever it may be. Bring them into my circle. That's the first piece. And when I say people, it's not just developers. They're important. You need to bring developers in because typically they have the financing or the capital backing to go do what they need to do to develop the property and hold it for a long term and pay engineers and surveyors and soil scientists and whatnot. I would also take the time to find a builder group. A lot of agents right now have an opportunity where lots are at a premium. Like I said at the top of this call, we got on a call yesterday, and D.R. Horton, Terramore Homes, you go down the list of all the big boys across the country. They pretty much said we do not have enough lots. And the company that we pay a good amount of money to do data study for us basically said that based on market research, the triangle market as a whole, so the greater Raleigh region, will be out of developed lots by 2022. No more developed lots because the demand is not keeping up. The supply is not there to hold out long enough. Typically, for a developed lot inventory, you want between 18 to 24 months of developed lots in comparison to ones that are being sold and built on. Right now, our market is at 9 months. That's not going to last through the rest of this year because, again, municipalities are slowing down when it comes to developing. So I say all that to say timelines are huge, and people with experience speed timelines up. So if you're going to get into this game, it's easy to go find a piece of land. It is. It's easy to go take it down and put it under contract. That's not hard. What's hard about it is knowing if you're going to be able to get through the approval process in 6 months or 18 months, because that 18 months can kill you. 6 months, you could probably get it done in a good time frame, if it makes sense. And then the second piece, really, once you find your builders or your developers, what they need from agents, if I'm an agent doing this, they need land and they need lots. So bring them opportunities. So if you're gearing up to do this, first of all, I would say this is a longer play. This is not something that's going to bring fruition overnight. I'm not saying you can't find some builders who need lots and you go out and source the lots for them and you make that connection. The world we're in right now, finding lots is really, really hard. I spent a lot of my time looking at possibilities and talking with people and probably I evaluate between 40 and 60 opportunities a week right now. And we may take one of those and that's it. Or only one may work out. If I put out 10 letters of intent, I might only win one. And that's just the market we're in right now. It's much like a buyer trying to buy a home in the $225,000 price point. That's lots in our world right now, right? So I would say find your group of people and then know what they're looking for. The value that you can bring to them is bring them dirt, is what we say. If you can bring dirt to the table, whether it's land or it's lots, if it's in a good location, go ahead and execute on that, and you'll have success there in building out your people group. And then the only suggestion I would make to people who do that, make sure you get something in writing with that builder group that you're the one who's going to market and sell those suckers at the end of it. I can't tell you how many times I run across people who don't have some kind of contract written up saying, I am the exclusive marketing agent for this subdivision. And you can negotiate. And here's the other thing. It's a wild, wild west when it comes to land, apparently. I'll tell you what, I have negotiated some wild stuff in the past couple of months. It is truly, truly strange. We got an irrigation ditch filled in, but then I also took ownership of a barn. We negotiated hunting rights on something because one of the people here likes to hunt. So it's like, well, we want to have hunting rights. Okay, great. So we negotiated that into a land purchase contract that we would have hunting rights. That's all part of the game. It's literally whatever you want. So if you're bringing dirt to the table on the marketing agreement side, I would suggest putting in there that you either get to market that subdivision or neighborhood or, and this is my personality style, I'm quick and fast. I like things to go very quickly. If that's going to take too long for you to get paid on, and you don't want to wait 6 months, 12 months, a year and a half to get paid when those houses are built and closed, you can negotiate that they pay you a per lot number, whatever that is. They pay you an amount per lot as a finder's fee. And people will do that a lot as well. So either one of those, as long as you're bringing the dirt to the table, make sure you're taking care of yourself on that front will be my biggest piece of advice there. But people and then dirt are the two big things I would say if you're breaking into new construction that will bring a lot of value to everybody.
Yeah, yeah, well said. How long, Ben, just as a follow-up on this, and then we'll move to Debbie's next question. How long do you think new construction is going to be an important part of this market?
Forever, Bill. Forever. Forever, man. What are you talking about? It's a really fair question. I think the big difference between now and any other time in history is the balance between pre-sales and spec homes. So typically, for example, we would typically carry anywhere from 5 to 10 inventory or spec homes on our sheets. I have 0. I have had 0 for a while. You don't have spec homes anymore. We can't build it. As soon as something goes to framing, it goes under contract. And that's this market. I keep reminding everybody that in a normalized market, that's probably different. But in the past, it used to be that for every one pre-sale, there were 2 spec homes. So a 2-to-1 ratio. In this market, it is now more of a 1-to-1 or a 2-to-1 pre-sale to spec ratio. We can't build specs before they flip. So until that starts balancing out again, I don't see new construction not being an important part. I based on the conversation we had with the economists from several of the banks that we deal with this past week, they're thinking that at least the next 2 to 5 years, we're in a bull market for lots, land, and new construction. Could be longer than that. And then I go back to, well, I've said this before, so you guys are gonna remember this, flashback for a second. Just because you're going 80 miles on a highway and then you get off on an exit and you go to 50 miles an hour and you feel like you're crawling, it doesn't mean you're going slow. If you jump out of that car, you're probably going to die, right? That's still pretty fast. However, it feels like you're going so slow because you were going 80 and then 50 now. That's what's going to happen to our market at some point. Even if we just slow down, people are going to say recession, recession. It's a normalization of the market. We're going to be fine. People are still going to buy homes. Maybe they're not buying 15 new construction homes out of a community in a month. Maybe it's 3. That's normal, right? So we have absorption rates. Usually it's between 2 and 3 a month in our market is where we look at for new construction. I had a month where we had 24. That's not normal, right? That's not what we're looking for. And that's actually dangerous in terms of lots because again, our lot supply gets so low, we don't have enough houses to sell or dirt to build on. So I think it sticks around for at least another 2 to 5 years. As it at the clip we're going at right now, I hope not, because you know what? I'm getting old, Bill. My knees hurt. I don't like running this hard. People need to slow down and give me a break. So I think it does continue. I don't see new construction fading into the background like it did in 2008 and 9 because of what happened. With the big difference being that we have so many pre-sales that the banks are seeing less risk because there's so many buyers, there's so much demand that until that evens out a little bit, I don't see it slowing down in the near future.
Yeah, no, I think you make a great point there. And a final thought on this would be if you're watching this and you're saying, okay, yeah, I believe that 2, 3, 5 years, you can read the quarterly earnings reports for many of these big companies. D.R. Horton just reported yesterday. They're telling you a lot of this stuff that Ben's been able to hear firsthand earlier than that. And you say, well, 3 years from now, I'd like to be selling some new construction as part of a neighborhood or hooked up with a builder or whatever else. Start today. Because the people who are doing that today started 2, 3, 5 years ago. So that's really the take-home lesson in this segment is if you're going to build it, understand, like Ben mentioned, that this is an intermediate to long game, that chances are there's plenty of runway left in this based on what's going on in the market. Great job, Ben, on that. So Debbie, I know you have some questions about real estate technology, which is very important to the rest of our audience as well. So take it away, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So circling back to Ben, technology being the mainstay in the business, we do still get a lot of questions around agent interface systems such as CRMs and agent technology, as well as market tools and data, the big D word that you talked about earlier, and then the consumer facing type of technology. And so would love to hear from you on what you're seeing as either advancements in technology in each of these 3 categories, agents, market, and consumer, or maybe not even advancements, but where things have crept in during COVID and are taking off. So I'll turn it over to you for those three categories and fill our minds with knowledge.
Well, the thing about, we'll start with the agent side, right? So let's talk platform for a second. Every year it felt like for a while there was a whole new platform that came out. There was a new CRM, right? Every year it was like, what CRM are you using? I'm using this one. Well, this is the newest one out. It kept on changing and changing, and there's always a new one, always a new one. We're kind of at that tipping point, I think, where you can't improve and make a better mousetrap at this point. I think the next big one that comes out is going to solve some big problems for people. And if I had to put my money on where that's going to happen at, people aren't going to like this, but it rhymes with Pillow. Is the company that's going to do it because they have the money and they're quietly acquiring several pieces of technology that's going to allow them to string this whole process together. The big thing that I'll be interested in seeing is how they release it and who uses it, how it's tested. But for the CRM for agents or the platforms for agents, it really hasn't changed. That's the thing. Like I said, I think you're at a tipping point right now where you have your big boys in the market. You have Commissions Inc., you have Chime, you have Sierra Interactive, you have Boomtown, lead generation, some database management in them. But that really has not changed as much. I think the other tools that agents are getting more used to or comfortable with are the Zoom, right? So when we go to do Zoom interviews or we're doing Zoom walkthroughs, like I said before, it's now like a verb almost for us that we're using Zoom today, or I'm going to go Zoom my client. Before it'd been like, what are you talking about? You're going to Zoom your client. Now it's like, oh, okay, cool. You're going to FaceTime, you're going to Zoom, you're going to use Google Duo, something to talk with your clients. I think that is where agents have the biggest opportunity to really, improve their skill sets and their technology usage. It's the same thing with e-signatures too. I look at everything that agents use. I always think of like the agent toolkit is what's in the back of my mind all the time. Like, what's your toolkit that you use, your technology toolkit on a daily basis? And it really hasn't changed in the past, I would say 24 months. It's pretty similar. You have a CRM that you're inputting client data into, hypothetically, right, Debbie? Because all of your coaching clients put all of their data into their CRM. And they do a really good job at it too, right? So all their data's in there. They can tell you birthdays. They can tell you when they moved into places. That's all kept in one central location. It is spiffy clean and 100% and topped off. So they have their platform, right? And then they have their e-signature platform. That's where they run all their contracts through. Those two things typically live in silos of each other. They're not usually connected. And it's a lot to do with security and a lot to do with API and these different platforms talking to each other. And now you're seeing this third layer come in where it's these communication tools with clients. And I think of communication tools not just being a Zoom or a phone or FaceTime or whatever it may be. It's also a hub for your clients to log into to see what's going on in their transactions. So I think the next piece that we're going to start seeing more and more often, and I'm interested to see which platform picks this up first. I know Brivity does it to a certain extent where they have a consumer facing side to it. I think there's still opportunity there for improvement. It's more so agent outward rather than consumer inward, if that makes sense. So until they change their mentality of I'm making this to help the consumer and bring them into my world, instead what happens is we're pushing out information to the consumer and saying, hey, here's a giant checklist of things we did, just so you know. Until we start bringing them into our world and walking them through the process. And the word that comes to mind when I was thinking on this was immersive. I think it's going to become a much more consumer immersive product. And I think, again, the big boys, the pillow companies are going to be the ones that actually do this down the road. And then beyond that, you just think of the other tools that agents use on a daily basis. I think you're going to see that start getting tied together. I see more synchronicity amongst platforms and tools down the road. That's the next iteration to me. Maybe something comes along and can do all of this in one spot, transaction management, along with your e-signatures, along with your CRM, along with your database. It's all in one spot. It lives in a happy medium. That's like the ultimate real estate dream. Real estate agent dream. Hasn't happened yet. It's a dream though. I think you're going to start seeing either synchronicity amongst platforms, or you're going to see one big platform kind of put all that together. And if I had to bet, like I said, I know who my money's on at this point, who's going to accomplish that first. And how they use it, that'll be the interesting piece down the road.
Yeah, I think you make a really good point too, and that point is acquisition. It takes a lot of time to build these systems and piece the end-to-end type of system together. And when you look at a company as large as the company you're referencing, acquiring things like Loop and then Showing Time and all of these various key pieces that they're squishing together. And I know Boomtown's working to be fast at that race too, acquiring additional technology systems to package as one, with the acquisition of BrokerMent just recently for the end-to-end for brokerages. So I agree, it's going to be through acquisition that this thing all funnels together, and it's definitely a race. And again, we have to keep in mind the consumer side. So what is consumer friendly, more for an engagement perspective than like you said, I see it as like an automated drip campaign that keeps going out. How do we get them, if it's that campaign, they click on it and then now they're engaging within the system, making comments about their transactions. They can go in there and ask for utility information or just find it within the system. A lot of e-signature type of things now with the mortgage companies switching to being more e-signature friendly. How do we set that up? Right now, the attorney sends me all the documents. I have to go into my system, load all the signatures, and then send it to the client, then send it back to the attorney. And so that end to end is that's definitely the race for those agents and making sure. So data, market tools, what should we know?
Data. This is the word that this was the buzzword I felt like the past couple of years kind of has crept up, and now it's exploded into what's happening to your data. And people get all up in arms about it, right? They're like, my data, what are you doing with my data? How dare you spy on me? And it's like, well, you're getting all this free stuff. So that's kind of the price you're paying for. So it's not really free. You're getting services for it. So that's data. What's interesting about it is how it's being used and the platforms that are available for us to use data for us to make better decisions. And that's how I look at data right now is one, it's predictive to a certain extent. It can help us see trends before other people can see them. And that's what some of the more expensive data is out there that we pay for. It allows us to see market trends and gives us up-to-date market analysis that other people don't have access to. So part of this, I think at a certain point, will become the haves and the have-nots in the data world. People who control the inflow of the data, they're going to be the haves because they'll set the price on it, right? They'll say, this is how much you have to pay to get access to this data. And the people who are willing to pay that will be able to make better choices, decisions, and see around corners a lot easier. I know some of the stuff we use, it helps some of the decision-making that we do. I can see things that I know my competitors are not seeing because they don't have access to it. It's that simple. I can see market trends probably 2 years before most people right now in my market, because a lot of people are not paying for the data that we're paying for. And that's a big advantage when you think about decision making. When I'm looking at, if I, for example, looking at a piece of land that's, I've got one that's $3 million in raw land acquisition price. Well, what I need to see is the growth there in 3 to 5 years to support that raw land acquisition price. Am I going to get the number of lots? Is the density going to be there? Do I see any companies moving into that area? That's part of the data we pay for. Is I get to see and hear what economics are going on in my area behind the scenes that they don't talk about. That's not in the news. So that gives me an upper edge on saying, okay, I know this company is thinking about putting this company here or a headquarters here in the next 3 years. Do I want to buy this piece of land now? Because in 3 years, it's probably going to be triple value what it is right now. So it makes sense for me to lock it up now, develop it, and work on it. So data in that context is very, very predictive and will allow you to see things that most people cannot see. So I think when we think on the resale side of things, the easiest level of it is the free data, right? I say free, but it's not really free, right? You still have to pay for it. But I think of like the MLS data. You got to have that anyway to go and do your job as a real estate agent. And so technically it's kind of like a prerequisite to be able to do the job. However, it's as free as you can get. Is that fair? I don't know if
that's fair. Yeah. Little information.
So I'm going to say it's free-ish. How about that? It's free-ish data. And that's where you can pull a lot of cool stuff out, trend lines. They have info sparks. Even if you just run CMA summaries on your market, that's data. That's data that the general public does not have access to. So again, that gives you a slight edge over the other people that are in the market. The second piece of that is also your experience in interpreting that data. So I know Bill likes to play in the stock world. So if I show Bill a large list of stock information, he would be able to pick stuff out of it. And he said, that's important. I would look at it and say, well, that looks like a lot of numbers. That's really exciting. Bill, is this a good idea or not? That's what I would say, because he's experienced in picking out the data points that are important. So the free data is great. We have found the importance of paying for the data that we can see around the corner. So we pay for several reports that show me everything from vacant developed lots in my market, and I can see historical data back for 15 years. I can also see all of the upcoming developments. So it lets me see everything all of my competitors are doing for the next 3 to 5 years, pretty much. I see raw land acquisitions. I also see demographic reports. So it pulls all the business and economic summaries and lets me know who's thinking about coming to our market, who's in our market, what job growth is in this area, where do we potentially see growth outliers at. They give us summaries of all that, but then they give you really granular data where I can go down to a neighborhood and see exactly what's happening all the way down to the neighborhood level. And then I can also see community, school districts, whatever I want to see. So that kind of data is more expensive, and it's also more useful because it's relevant. The thing you got to reflect on when you're looking at your data sources is the length of time it takes the data to go into the system and then come to you. And right now, and high frequency traders went through this, right? Michael Lewis wrote a book about it, about how they actually tried to shorten the length of fiber optic cable between them and the stock exchange, because whoever got there first, they can make millions of dollars based on milliseconds in data transfer. This isn't quite that extreme, but it is more important to get data that is, a month old versus data that is a year old. So a lot of our competitors rely on things that are a year to 18 months stale information, whereas we're getting information that is actually 3 to 5 year predictive information. Big difference in what I'm able to do or see versus what they're able to do or see. Decision making is the biggest piece of this. We're very confident in a lot of the decisions we make because while we can't eliminate risk, we can minimize it to a large extent with this. And by running it through all these different parameters, you're able to see things that other people can't see. So there's a lot of value in it. You do have to pay for it though. So I know on the other side for resale, we always found Cole Realty. I know we've talked about it, and Cole keeps getting better. Like I've always been impressed with it. And we still use it on some items that we work on. So I've had my hands in it recently. It's pretty cool. They've updated a lot of stuff in it. There's a lot of good tools in there, and the data, and they're still pretty good. And again, it's market dependent on where you're at. I get that. But there's a lot of tools out there, and I would say don't be afraid. If I was going to make any large expenditures, I wouldn't shy away from data information at this point. I'm not saying go drop $1 million on it if you can help it, but if someone said, hey, you have an opportunity to upgrade a CRM platform where you can go and get some information about what's going on in your market before everyone else, I would think the information in my market is going to be more relevant and helpful in me building my business.
Yeah, and that's a great point with Cole. I actually did a webinar with them just last week, and they were taking me through their data platforms on just little things like absentee owners and searching by how long people have owned homes and the age of the people that are in the homes and all of those various things, and reverse prospecting that through various data sets. So I agree, when you think about cost effective and where I'm spending my money, it does have to be in that data. And there's several platforms out there that offer various data, like your RPR reports and that sort of thing. Again, it's like, honestly, and if there's any appraisers out there, don't take offense, but it's like the appraisers right now, it's stale data, right? Because what they're appraising on was what sold 30 days ago, when we've got 15 properties under contract for 9% more. It just hasn't closed yet. Right. So it is about the length of time it takes that data to get there, so that we can get that. All right. Real quick on the consumer side. So client experience. I know we have a lot of our clients focusing on increasing that client experience and that customer care department within their organizations to continue to drive their business through sphere-based referrals and repeat business and that sort of thing. Anything you're seeing to increase client experience and technology?
We kind of pinged on this a little bit already. I think I'm always thinking of right now is how can we make this easier for our end consumer? I think that's a question. Sorry, the lights are on automatic, so I just went dark. There we go. let it readjust for a second. Apparently I'm not moving well. I feel like I'm jumping around, but apparently not. The sensor said, no, you need to move more. What we're seeing is, I think the bigger companies out there that are executing on this are thinking about, how can I bring that consumer into the transaction, or how can I make them a part of the process? Immersive, again, is the word I think of. So we mentioned the like e-notary. I think that's something that you're going to see a lot more for people. Convenience is what they're really looking for at this point. And when it comes to real estate, you're talking about convenience in an industry that hasn't really shifted a lot of their parameters. It's being forced to at this point. So there's still wet signatures required for closing documents or transfers of deeds and things of that nature. I think people are going to start figuring out how they can get around that with the e-notary side of things. I do think that consumers are looking for more ways to get immersed into the house that they're going to buy. And you think about timing on this too, right? So you guys probably see this more than I do, but when a house goes on the market with the people you coach right now, would you say that they have just a few people come and look at the house, or is there a lot of people come and look at the house?
A lot. 15-minute windows, buddy.
Yeah, 15-minute windows, right? That I think the technology aspect of that, people feel very pushed and rushed right now. So if we can make it where it may not be the physical feeling of walking through a house, but it's pretty darn close to it, that's going to win a lot of clients for agents who are willing to take that step and invest in that technology. So I do think the augmented reality is where it's going to go on the resale side, just because you think about the time, and if you have a coming soon property that you can't technically show, are you able to still show it through augmented reality? Yeah, well, why not, right? You're not letting them in the house by the rules of the MLS. So I think you're going to see that happen more and more. And that's where people are going to either win or lose business down the road, because that's going to become a big piece for them, where if their clients are able to see a house, before everyone else is, because of that augmented reality, and make a good decision on it, and they don't feel rushed, it's a better client experience. And on your end, think about the time savings that you have. If you're a buyer agent, or if you're a seller agent, even in this market, you're not as worried, because you're able to just put it online and let people walk through it. You can capture their information, then you can automate your follow-ups. It'll make the experience a lot better for everybody, I think. So I do see that as a shift coming down the road. 3D was always that technology that they were figuring out. I think I can tell you it's gotten good enough at this point, because I've played with it. It's gotten good enough at this point that it's going to become standardized in the industry once they get the cost and the pricing down on it enough. The other part is how are you guiding your consumers through the transaction? Are you making them the centerpiece of it? I think a lot of times when we go back, for example, say you hire a transaction coordinator for your business, right? You start from process or the sequence of step number one, and then you take it through step number 175,360, how many steps your process has, right? That's Bill's process, by the way. That's why there's so many steps in it. But you take all those steps, right, and you put them on this long chart. And what are you doing? I am going from step 1 to 176, whatever that number was. And I am going for my internal purposes to make sure I, one, stay out of real estate jail. And two, I want to make sure that I get my paycheck at the end. So my paperwork's in, all the stuff's checked off with the lender. Basically, you're doing this giant internal checklist that's taking you and your team, if you have a team, or you as a solo agent, from point A to point Z, right? It's not focusing on how are you bringing the client along for that ride. So I think that now is the opportunity, again, that immersive strategy. I think that really focusing more on platforms that allow you to do this. And again, I said Brivity. I know a lot of other ones are rolling out consumer-facing sides. I have seen, I think Commissions Inc.'s doing this. I'm pretty sure Sierra Interactive is rolling out something along these lines. Firepoint has something along these lines where consumers or the buyers can get involved in the platform. I think that needs to get more refined over time, and I think it will as they use it more. And you hear the complaints or the suggestions for things to get fixed. You'll see that come up higher. But I do think that's a piece that agents miss right now, where it's very much internalized transaction coordination once they get someone under contract, and it's not focused on client experience at all. So if you want to focus on the client experience, take every single step in your process. And let's say, if I were the client, one, does this matter to me? Bill asked me that question when we were doing the digital marketing series, and he always asked me on every slide. I have to ask on this slide, why does this matter to me? So do that on every single step. See, Bill, I have that imprinted in my brain now.
It seems to me like you've got some PTSD around that or something.
Just a little bit. Did I twitch? No. But looking back at it and saying it's a really good question that you asked, and it's really relevant for us to look at for our clients. Say, is this important to our client? Why is it important to the client? And if you say no, it's not really important, then great. Go to the next step. Say, is this important to our client? Yeah, it's important to our client that we got through due diligence, inspections all are good, the appraisal came back normal in this market, right? That's a big deal. So what are we doing for the client? Are we just saying, hey, you got your appraisal back, great job? That it? I'm sorry, I'm throwing a party if an appraisal comes back well right now. I'm telling you guys, I mean, it is a battle to get the appraisers to look at the current numbers versus 6 to 12-month-old data. So I look at those steps in the process and say, what are we doing right now to bring the client into it? What are you doing to improve their interaction with you, but their whole process with you? So I would suggest taking your whole list of things that you do one by one, saying, what can we do to make this better for the client or bring them into this process with us? I really think clients want to lock arms with people now and feel like they're part of the whole thing. They may not want to. The best analogy I know is that most people don't really want to know how to build the engine of their car. They really don't care. What they really care about is that it, one, works, and two, that when they get in and either hit the button to start the car, put the key in the ignition, that it starts. But they still want to kind of know, like, how is it put together? I know the tires go on here and the brakes go on here and the engine's up front and it still works and the windshield wipers work and all that good stuff, right? They want to know all that. So they want to be involved in the process. So I think that immersive side of it's coming. I know in our world right now on the new construction side, it's very much here where we're immersing them in that process. So if I'm a resale agent, I'm finding ways to do that on the front end, whether it's with my new listings or on the back end with my transaction management, so that the client experience is super high. And then long-term, of course, as well, we're still immersing them with client experience type of items to nurture them and get them back later.
Yeah, great stuff. Well, I'm waiting for, and I said this when we all went to Zoom, right? And this was back in April of 2020. My biggest want is the scratch and sniff sticker, because if we can put that in AI, then we will know what the house smells like and we'll be able to confidently move forward, because that is one thing that's lacking.
Have you seen that? Well, have you seen them testing that, Debbie?
I hope they are.
No, seriously, this is serious. I'm not kidding. This is coming. So it's a spray system. They have a spray. It has different scents that you'll buy eventually, and it'll be a spray. So when you're walking through with your Oculus goggles on, it will spray and you will smell what the house smells like.
Oh, cigarette smoke? No.
There you go. If you want cigarette smoke, dogs or cats, whatever. You know, all
that's right. That's not going to bottle all of those.
I like how you went right to cigarette smoke.
All right. Well, I know that you were a key component of Digital Wednesday, so I'm going to turn it over to Bill to talk about some trends in digital marketing.
Well, I have two quick thoughts on this before we move on. First of all, I found it really interesting, Ben, that you said that you referenced the KGB 3 times and you were afraid to say Zillow. So I'm not sure what that means. All kidding aside, what you put I think a great point out there on is some of these companies that are racing to make all this more efficient, both for the consumer and for the agent. They're publicly traded companies. Now, I know there's a private race on this too. What the private guys are finding is that it's too dang expensive. And there's so much money out there that when you see the Zillows and the others of the world, it's literally unlimited supply of capital chasing this thing that we're talking about. And that led me to, I think you made a really smart point when you're talking about all the data that you guys purchase. And it was buried in there. I want to just pluck it out for everybody so they heard this. You're doing that because you're getting the information faster than your competitors, and you're doing that to mitigate the risk of a bad decision. So your probability of good decisions goes up. So I think one of the things that we're seeing right now in just the general real estate landscape is that people are under investing in the future of their businesses at a time where capital is plentiful. And instead, what they're doing, if they're not careful, is they're relying on the things that are winning for them right now. They're taking that excess capital and they're pouring it into their lifestyles instead of saying, where's the business going to be 2, 3, 5 years from now, and investing in that. That's what you guys are doing. Is and you know this, I'm just highlighting this because you're investing in the predictability of the future to mitigate risk, and you're getting that information faster than your competitors, which means you're going to win. And then the competitors will look at it and say, how the heck did they do that? And the secret is that you used your excess capital as a weapon. So I want to make sure the audience hears that. Any thoughts on that before we move to the other question?
Really good point. It's a really good point. And I look at people as part of that investment as well. And right now, it's been interesting because talent's harder to find right now, because people are trying to pay them 2018 pay scales and not looking at, if I had to have this person in my organization, where could I be in 2022, 23 if they're here right now? And I'm willing to pay that amount right now because, like you said, I'm not investing in the excess money into our lifestyle or other items. I'm investing it back into my business. And part of my business is people. So that's been a big boon as well, is that willing to pay for the top tier talent because we see where it's going. And we're not saying overpay or overstaff yourself with an enormous overhead. You have to be smart about this, of course. I do think you're spot on, though, that you need to invest kind of looking down the road. And to me, I see right now the biggest miss on people investing in their businesses is they're not investing enough into their people. They're not willing to take that number and say, your admin wants 55 a year. Okay, are they worth that? First of all, are they, what are the criteria for 55 a year? So you're under investing in people right now. And that subparness can hurt you down the road more so than can saving you $10,000 right now. And I think that's a big miss for a lot of, and I see it a lot in agents too. I mean, because it's a whole different mentality in that side of the business, and I've been there. So I think that's the opportunity for a lot of people going forward.
Yeah. As an interesting observation on this thread, one of the contributing factors that the three of us know, one of the contributing factors to the shortage of supplies for housing, building materials or struts for your vehicle or whatever it is a year ago when all this stuff happened, everybody freaked out and stopped. Instead of doing what the three of us and others were talking about is saying, hang on, before you just like slash and burn everything and start freaking out, go double down in the areas that are going to be beneficial. So maybe if some of these guys would have been on our early webinars, they would be reaping some really cool stuff right now. Anyway, I'm on my soapbox. I'll stop. Let's. I'm getting that look. Like, let's move on. All right, Ben. So the question is, put your agent hat on for just a second, or your agent coach hat on for a second, and talk to us about digital marketing and the things that we ought to make sure that we're definitely doing.
Well, I've really changed my tune on this. So hold on, Bill, you're going to be shocked. I think a video is pretty important. I know. I haven't said it that much. I'm sorry. It took me a while to come around. You were right when you told me first, and it took me a couple of years. No, in all seriousness, it's one of those things where I can't quite grasp why people have not moved into video harder than they have currently moved into it. And I can't tell if it's and I'm not trying to be mean or beat anybody down, but if somebody says it's got to be a little bit of ego because you're afraid to put yourself out there. And what's going to happen is, and this is just, again, you said, put the coach hat on for a second, you're going to lose. You're going to lose to people who are willing to do this. And you're going to see people outrace you on things, or see clients that were your clients go and use somewhere else. And you're going to say, well, why did they go and use that person? It's not because they don't like you or that you're not good at what you do. You're not familiar to them like this other person is. Why do you think advertising with a radio host who is known in a local city produces such good results? Do you think it's because they trust that radio host? It is because they're familiar, because they listen to them all the time, because that's on brand for them. So I look at video as a way for you to get familiar with your local community. And I think it's a big opportunity. And then I go back to the pillar side of it, where it's not just one video. You can take a video and make 4 or 5 different posts with it on different platforms. You can get it transcribed by somebody for like $10. And then it's a blog post for you. And then you can rip the audio out and it's a podcast for you. So the video to me is kind of the pinnacle of hitting everything else, where if you take a blog, you can't turn that into a video unless you have somebody sit down and read it. Even then, that's going to be kind of boring, right? So, but if you're reversing that, you're going from the video kind of as the top of the pyramid, all this other stuff comes out of it. And people are just resisting it. It's crazy to me. And I think the big thing for me on that end is authenticity of it all. And Debbie doesn't have to smirk at this. I know she's heard this enough from me in the past. It's people are so afraid of not being perfect on all of this stuff that they stop. Like, Bill, you made a good point. Last year, a lot of people just stopped when COVID happened, or they got scared and they stopped because they didn't know. And it's like a deer in the middle of the road. And that deer usually gets hit by a truck and it gets obliterated. So I'm a fan for running as fast as possible. And at least if I run into a truck, it's going to end quickly. Versus just standing there and watching it come at me. I feel like that's the worst way to go. Personal opinion, of course. So I think when we look at going on this, people are afraid of what people see them as or perception of them. And they need to get over that and say, you know what, this is what I look like. This is what I sound like. I may fumble and bumble my words on video. I may make, KGB jokes 3 or 4 times and people look at that as strange, you never know who's watching though, but I'm kidding. So, but people get so caught up in other people's perception of them. It's got to be a little bit of ego. And what's going to happen is that people who are going to become more familiar with your competitors who are willing to do this. And at this point, I'll be honest with you, I really thought that people would be more invested into video, even if it's just doing simple little snapshot videos themselves, than they have become. I still see written word posts more. I still see people hyping up the fact that they had a closing. I still see them, doing it's almost like when things went digital for advertising. It's almost like those people who started in the digital, looking back at the people advertising in our area was the Southside Shopper, the newspaper for real estate. And they were looking at that, and the Southside Shop people were going, well, you guys, that's stupid. Why would you do anything digital? You're going to get crushed. You need to advertise in our newspaper. And now, like, there's no Southside Shopper, there's no newspaper anymore. That's what's going to happen. That is what's going to happen to people. And they're going to sit there and go, well, how did we lose on this? How did this blow up? It's because they didn't take the time to make those videos and just get out from their own selves and become a little bit more there. So I think video is king because it gives you the opportunity for a lot of other things. I think the next big category is audio. I think audio is where a lot of people are going to right now. You think about the shift last year that happened from people being out and about, where now they're driving in cars to work again, or they're out running or walking, or they're exercising, or they're doing other activities. What do most people do? They pop their AirPods in, they turn a podcast on, or they turn a book on. Typically it's a podcast right now is what I'm seeing more often than not. So if you're not fighting in that space a little bit, which you could do if you were doing video, you could take your video and you could turn it into a podcast, and then you'd be in that space, right? And a lot of your competitors aren't. So I do see audio as the next big piece of this. And really, if you're doing video, you're already there. It's not extra work. You're already there. And the beautiful thing about all that too, Bill, is that a lot of this can be outsourced for a nominal fee. You're talking people will transcribe your videos, people will rip your audio, they will edit your audio, and you're not talking, oh, I'm paying somebody $1,000 a pop. It may be $20 for them to do that for you. Mm-hmm. So it's really nominal. So cost is not an inhibited factor on this. And just about everybody has a cell phone to record themselves on. They can take the audio from your cell phone, or when you do a video of yourself on your cell phone, they can make it sound like it's coming out of a studio now. I mean, that's the ability's there. So there's no more excuses on that end. So, okay, I'm off my soapbox. Video, and then I think audio is the next big thing. Back to you guys.
Yeah. Debbie, what do you want to wrap up with here? Because we got a couple of minutes left before we scoot. What would you like to hit?
Yeah, I think, Ben, just anything else you want to leave us with as far as parting thoughts and things that we should consider?
No, I think you guys said everything that we need to talk about. I think agents becoming more skilled in the marketplace is important. Debbie, you made a good point about appraisals. That's been a bird in my saddle lately. I think agents have to get more skilled on how we handle appraisals. I don't think the appraisers are going to change their mindset. So we got to figure out how we're going to combat that going forward. I would encourage people to do video, figure out ways to outsource pieces of your business if you have to. Prefer it in-house, but if it's going to get you to do it, figure out how you can outsource it to people. There was one marketing service, just so you guys know, it's called Dippity, D-I-P-P-I-D-I. We used it on the residential real estate side for a while. It worked really, really well. Produces leads for you, does that whole kit and caboodle. So we didn't talk about that much today. That's something to go check out.
Give it to them one more time, just in case they missed it, please. The company.
Dippity, D-I-P-P-I-D-I.
Perfect. All right. Debbie, anything else on your end before we wrap up?
That's it. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate your time. And we enjoyed getting the band back together and learning a little bit more about what you're seeing in your world.
Thanks, Ben. Good to see you, buddy.
Thanks for having me back.
Thanks, Debbie. See y'all.
Take care. Bye, guys.